Hello everyone, my name is Makeda Voletta, also known as the Body Scientist. For those of you who don't know, I am an exercise physiologist, a strength and conditioning coach, and also a sports nutritionist. And I'm here today to talk to you about fat, okay? We are going to be, I will be discussing dietary fat and body fat, okay? Fat in general is something that, gets talked about a lot, but there's so much confusion about fat in terms of how much body fat is healthy and how to lose body fat, the most efficient ways to lose body fat, and also what dietary fats are good and bad. So there's lots of confusion and discussion around fat, okay? So first I'll start by saying that fat is a macronutrient, okay? The macronutrients that we derive calories from in energy are protein, carbohydrates, and fat, okay? Now, oftentimes we hear to be healthy that we should be on a low-fat diet, that fat is not good, that eating fat makes you fat, and a lot of that is untrue, okay? Now, let's start with body fat first, and then we'll get into dietary fat, okay? Now, in terms of the fat in our bodies, there's different types of fat. There is subcutaneous fat, which is the fat that hangs on the outside of the body that people see, like when people have like a roll of fat in their stomach, or just fat that hangs. Subcutaneous fat is the fat in the outer layers of the body that hang and that we see. Then there is the fat that surrounds our organs, okay? Now there are a lot of people who could be very skinny. A person could be skinny on the outside and very thin, but on the inside, the organs could be completely covered in fat, which is actually very dangerous. And there's no way to tell that until somebody dies and an autopsy is done. So while a person is living, there really isn't any way, at least that I know of, unless technology has changed since I was last in school. But there's no way to tell if somebody has a lot of fat around their organs until they pass and an autopsy is done, but it is very dangerous. And then there's intramuscular fat. So that's the fat that's inside of our muscles, and that fat helps to give us energy. That fat is used during exercise, during exertion. It's used for energy, and it's not a bad fat. So it's like when we eat fat, like you notice protein and fat work together. So in meat, you have protein and fat together, and that fat is intramuscular fat that's inside the muscle. Like looking at a piece of bacon, you have muscle and you have fat, okay, that are interwebbed and working together. They need each other to digest, and they're both good sources of energy and bodybuilding materials, okay? Now, in terms of body fat, women need to have more fat than men. So there's something called essential body fat. And essential body fat is the amount of body fat you need to be healthy. Okay, if it goes beneath that number, then it's unhealthy. And for women, that textbook number is 12%. A woman should not go beneath 12% body fat. That means 12% of her weight being fat. And for men, that number should not be lower than 4%. So as you can see, women have more body fat than men. Women need to have more body fat than men to be healthy. And this is because of giving birth and breastfeeding and childbearing. So for childbearing reasons, women need to have more body fat in order to be healthy. If a woman's body fat drops too low, then she can stop menstruating. And that is seen sometimes in female athletes who become too lean. Okay, I remember myself, like right after I graduated from college and my first year of graduate school, I remember for once in my life, I skipped a period. And I knew immediately that it was because I needed to put more fat in my diets. Like I didn't have a lot of body fat. I ran track in college. I was very lean. And so I started putting more fat in my diet. My menstrual cycle came. The menstrual cycle, that's something that I'll do a separate video about. I've done 2-hour radio shows talking just about the menstrual cycle. But I will say briefly that I don't agree with getting rid of the menstrual cycle. Oftentimes, when your menstrual cycle stops, it's not a good sign. It's a sign that you don't have enough fat in your body to sustain a pregnancy and a baby. So you lose your menstrual cycle as a protective mechanism for you not to get pregnant, and that can lead to osteopenia, which is premature osteoporosis. When you see osteoporosis in brittle bones in young people, it's called osteopenia. And in the sports world, it's called the female athlete triad, and it's known that female athletes become too lean, they lose their menstrual cycle, then they get osteopenia, now their bones are messed up, okay? So you don't want that issue. And you have hormonal problems, okay? Now, our hormones are made from cholesterol, okay? Cholesterol is not a fat, but a lot of times people think of it as a fat, okay? But cholesterol comes with fats, and cholesterol is only in animal foods. And again, your sex hormones and vitamin D are made from cholesterol. So you have estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. You know, you can have serious problems with those hormones if you don't have cholesterol in your diet, all right? So now in terms of body fat, now in fitness and like people who go to Weight Watchers or, you know, the general fitness information that people get, or when they go to their doctor or dietitians often, dietitians and nutritionists often use a measurement called the BMI. The BMI stands for body mass index, okay? Body mass index. It's used by the medical world, it's used by the nutrition world. However, in the fitness world and exercise physiology, sports scientists, in that world, we do not regard the BMI as being an accurate measurement at all. I remember when I was in college, it was drilled into our head that the BMI is inaccurate. And why is it inaccurate? It's inaccurate because the BMI only takes into account your height and your weight. It's a measurement where they divide, you know, I can't remember if it's in inches or centimeters or what the actual metric measurements are. But the BMI takes into account your height and your weight, and I think it divides your weight into your height or vice versa, and you get a ratio. Okay, it's called the BMI, body mass index. And based on that, it'll tell you if you're kind of obese or, you know, too obese or what category you're in. However, the reason why it's inaccurate is because it does not take into account how much of your weight is fat. It's not the overall weight that matters. What matters the most is what percentage of that weight is fat. You could have two people who are 5'10" and 175 pounds, okay? But one person could be 5'10", 175 pounds, but 4%, let's say 6% of their body weight is fat, okay? So they're 5'10", 175 pounds, but 6% of that 175 pounds is fat. And you can have another person who's the same height, 5'10", 175 pounds, but their percentage of fat is 40%, okay, or 30%, all right? Let's say it's 30%. Now, those two people are the same height and weight, but one has 6% body fat, other one has 30% body fat. That's a huge difference. That person with the 4% body fat is a much leaner build, okay? Very muscular, very cut up. The more muscle somebody has, the more calories and the more protein they need to consume in order to keep that muscle. Okay, muscle is metabolic tissue of the body, okay? Muscle burns calories. And excuse me with the mistakes. I really don't like talking to cameras, but I'm trying to do these videos so I can educate everybody. So just bear with me. In my mind, I generally talk very fast, but I try to slow down when I do videos because I know a lot of people don't understand me, but when I slow down, it kind of makes me confused. So bear with me. So anyhow, as I was saying, is that and what it matters the percentage, what percentage of your body is fat and muscle. Now, muscle is the metabolic tissue of the body, so muscle is always burning calories, always burning energy, even when a person is doing nothing, even at rest, okay? But fat cells are storage cells. Fat cells store fat, they store fat-soluble vitamins, and they store toxins, okay? Fat cells generally don't have any metabolism, except brown fat. There's a type of fat called brown fat, which babies generally have, and also people who are from cold places tend to have a higher percentage of brown fat, which does have metabolism. But the way to increase your brown fat, for someone to increase brown fat, the way you do that is by going outside a little bit underdressed in cold weather, and your body it as a kind of like a mechanism of adaptation, your body will start to develop more brown fat, which is a metabolic kind of fat. But most of the subcutaneous fat you see in people, especially in Americans, is not brown fat, okay? It is fat that's storing toxins and fat and has no metabolism, okay? So when exercising, it's important to do things that build muscle and which help to burn fat. A lot of times, trainers who don't really know what they're doing will say, if they get an obese client or somebody who has a lot of body fat and wants to lose fat, they'll say, oh, I'll give them cardio first. I'll put them on the treadmill, I'll put them on the elliptical first and have them lose weight and then have them lift weights. But that's actually wrong and not the best method. The best method for someone who is trying to lose body fat and has way too much fat on their body, they should start lifting weights immediately. Because the more that they increase their lean body mass is everything but fat. So it's bones, it's muscle, that's your lean body mass, okay? So the more they increase their lean body mass, their muscle tissue, the faster their metabolism will be. The more calories they burn, even when they're doing nothing, okay? So let's say, and muscle is more dense than fat. So let's just say, I'm trying to find something I can use as an example. Two things. Okay, let's say that a pound of fat takes up this much space, okay? So this is a pound of fat. And then let's say a pound of muscle takes up this much space, okay? This is a pound of muscle. A pound of fat, a pound of muscle, okay? So if somebody loses 15 of these, but gains 10 of these, they're smaller. Even though their weight may have only changed 5 pounds, so they get on the scale and they're like, oh my God, I only lost 5 pounds, but they're smaller because they lost 15 of these and gained 10 of these. So that means their actual body is smaller, but they only lost 5 pounds. So if you're going by your progress in weight loss by just looking at your overall weight, it can be deceiving, because what's really important is the body fat, the actual fat you've lost. Because, and this is important, because if you lose weight from not eating enough, which is a starvation diet, you don't eat enough protein, you're not eating enough calories, what happens is your muscle begins to eat itself. Your muscle eats itself. You lose muscle. Your muscles atrophy. And when that happens, your metabolism slows down, because remember, the muscle tissue is the metabolic tissue of the body. So your metabolism will slow down, your body thinks you're starving, so now anything you eat, your body stores it as fat because your body thinks that you're starving. So it's a protective mechanism, because fat is used for energy. So when your body stores fat, it's for energy in case of famine. So your body thinks you're starving and it starts to hold on to every single thing and store it as fat. This is the reason why it's not a good idea at all to try to lose weight by going on some restrictive diet, trying to suppress your appetite, and not eating enough food, okay? Now, and then if you do too much so-called cardio, which is aerobic metabolism at a low pace, so you're jogging for miles and stuff like that, that burns muscle as well, okay? So then you might get smaller, but you're flabby, all right? So if you don't want to be flabby, and if you want to lose fat and not muscle, then you need to strength train. You need to eat enough to keep your muscle and to support that growing muscle, because when you strength train, it rips up your muscles. Your muscles build back stronger and tighter, but they need protein and calories in order to do that, okay? High quality proteins. Now, there are fats that help you burn fat, okay? Like the omega-3 fatty acids, which come from fish, the EPA and DHA fats. Those are help you to lose fat. So do the fats in coconut oil, okay? The coconut oil has some very potent fats, antimicrobial fats like lauric acid, but it also has fats that help you to burn fat, medium chain triglycerides. They're called MCTs. And if you look at any commercial fat burner, they always have MCTs on the list. MCTs stands for medium chain triglycerides, and the body uptakes it very easily without having to go through all this digestion. And they actually give you energy, and they help you to burn fat. Then there are CLA fats, which are actually an omega-6 fat, which omega-6 fats are actually pro-inflammatory fats and can cause one to gain more fat. But the CLA fat is one omega-6 fat that actually helps you to burn fat as well. And that's found in grass-fed meat. And the meats and eggs and dairy of grass-fed animals. CLA, conjugated linoleic acid, okay, is also a fat that helps you. Then we have saturated fats. Coconut oil actually is mostly saturated fat, okay? But there's long-chain saturated fats and there's short-chain saturated fats. The short-chain saturated fats really speed up your metabolism, and then what our heart uses. Our heart needs saturated fat. So when we hear that saturated fat is bad for us and that we shouldn't consume it and that gives you a heart attack, that's completely not true. Actually, the heart uses saturated fatty acid as a source of energy, okay? So we need saturated fat. Also, saturated fats, we need saturated fats in order for our body to uptake and use the omega-3 fats, okay? We need saturated fats. The fats that are bad are the industrial fats, the ones that don't come from nature. There are no fats that come from nature that are bad for you, whether in plants or animals, okay? However, we do need the proper balance between omega-3 and omega-6 fats, because the omega-3 fats, especially the ones of animal origin, are anti-inflammatory. The omega-6 fats are pro-inflammatory. And we need both, because you need pro-inflammation in case you cut yourself. You need your body to be able to respond to inflammation. You need your body to be able to respond to injury, and that response is inflammation, okay? Otherwise, you bleed to death, okay? So you need that, but you don't want too much inflammation. And so we need to have a ratio of omega-3 and omega-6 about 1 to 1. It needs to be about equal ratio, or a little bit more omega-3 than omega-6. However, the average American is consuming 6 times the amount of omega-6, about 6 parts omega-6 for each piece of omega-3, okay? So the imbalance is really off, and it's causing a lot of inflammation and problems, okay? So all of the industrial oils like corn oil, soybean oil, canola oil, safflower, sunflower oil, Crisco, margarine, all those oils are omega-6. They've been pressed with heat, which further destructs them. And they are worse than trans fats. Most people now are aware of what trans fats are, which are hydrogenated vegetable oils, partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, and now they also hydrogenate lard and stuff like that. Any kind of fat that has been hydrogenated, it then turns into a trans fat, which is highly toxic. It's cancer causing, it causes severe damage to our DNA. It's a very unstable, damaging molecule. But the industrial vegetable oils, like corn oil, soybean oil, canola oil, those are just as bad, if not worse, okay? Those are also very pro-inflammatory fats, and they're very unstable, okay? So those fats don't come from nature, and they're new to our diet. When we start seeing heart disease and cancer and obesity, we see, if you look at statistics, that those numbers increase the more people started consuming industrial fats. When they started telling people to stop using lard, but to cook with Crisco, the heart rate, the heart attack and heart disease went through the roof, okay? Before like 1910, nobody had ever heard of heart attacks before. So heart attacks did not always exist. Neither did cancer, neither did diabetes, neither did arthritis, all these other immune diseases. They're all fairly new, okay? But people have been eating beef and beef tallow and lard, and the fats in whole milk, whole raw milk, and eggs, goose fat, duck fat. You go around the world, the Japanese, the number one oil they cook with is lard. You look at the Mediterranean and throughout Europe, they use goose fat, duck fat, beef tallow. McDonald's used to fry their french fries in beef tallow. Now they use vegetable oil, corn oil, or soybean oil or something. And they continuously use it. That is the worst oil you could fry something in, okay? It's much healthier to fry something in lard or beef tallow than it is to fry it in the corn oil and the soybean oil, okay? I really urge people to do your research when it comes to what I'm telling you about these industrial fats. They're really, really bad for you. A lot is being written these days on them and how bad it is. One great source, I would say, is to check out a website, mercola.com, MERCOLA.com. Okay, Dr. Mercola. He has a free newsletter. You can go on his site and just put just different things you're interested in and see what comes up. He has a website that's a great resource. I also recommend reading the book Real Food by Nina Planck. Hold on, I think I have it. This book right here, Real Food by Planck. Okay, this book is a very, very good resource. Another book which I recommend to anybody who is serious about building their body to the best potential it could possibly be built to. Anybody who wants children, man or woman, who want kids, and you want your children to be stronger than you and more perfect than you, you should also check this out. But just anybody who wants to be healthy and have longevity and is confused about what to eat and all these different theories. Anyone who is studying nutrition, studying any type of health, medicine, anybody who advises people on their health, anything like that, I highly recommend. If I could only recommend one book, because there are plenty of books I've read, and there are a few that I recommend, but if I could only recommend one, it would be this one. This book is called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, and it's written by an American dentist named Weston and it's written in the 1930s. I could talk about why I recommend this book, but if you get it, you'll understand. There is no book that's ever been written on nutrition, health, indigenous nutrition that is more important than this book. This book is vitally important, okay? If I always felt like it's not a mistake when people come out with so-called defects. And these defects are becoming so common that we think they're normal, okay? So if you really are curious about that and would like to know how to prevent them and, all of that, check this book out, okay? Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Anyhow, that book clearly shows what happens. He clearly documents what happens to different remote groups of people once they started eating the modernized diet. When they stopped eating their traditional diets, which was high in animal fats. It didn't matter where he went to. Whether it was the Aborigines in Australia, Native Americans, all throughout Africa, all throughout Europe, the Polynesian Islands, people ate a lot of animal fat. Way more animal fat than we do now. About 10 times as much vitamin A and about 10-15 times as much vitamin D as we consume. Vitamin A and vitamin D is only in animal fats, okay? It does not occur in plant foods. You need animal fats. And he shows how when people start eating sugar and flour and corn oil and donuts fried in vegetable oil, that's when people start getting severely sick and having problems.